Hello folks, my name is Jason and this is my first video in a series I'll be doing about autism. A bit about me. I'm 49 years old. I'm from Canada. I live in Mexico and married with a daughter. I was diagnosed initially by my wife, who's a doctor. She noticed autistic behavior in me, and hi kitty, say hi kitty. And so that of course led me to start obsessing over whether or not I'm autistic, what is autism, and the whole nine yards, and eventually getting diagnosed. So what does a diagnosis mean for someone who has lived their entire life battling with all of the difficulties and just thinking that, there's something wrong with them, that the world is a frustrating and chaotic and just a place that doesn't make sense. Why social situations are so uncomfortable, just the whole ball of yarn that goes with it. And you finally get this diagnosis, or whether you're self-diagnosed, you're autistic, and it opens up like a third eye. All of a sudden you're looking at your entire life with a whole different point of view and realizing that now it all makes sense. But it's very overwhelming. After my diagnosis, I had a number of meltdowns. I would just start sobbing for no reason, and I think it was a mix of both relief and fear, because everybody who is not on the autistic spectrum always thinks of autistics as, very awkward, like noticeably awkward, very robotic in their speech, and not liking to be touched and things like that. And so after getting a diagnosis, you're like, well, I'm like that. Like, I didn't realize I'm like that, and I'm like that. And it leads us down this very big rabbit hole of trying to figure out who we are as autistics, meaning, learning to identify ourselves amongst the whole gamut of possible areas that affect us as an autistic. And for me, I think with everybody, we just start searching online, we start searching on YouTube, and one of the first things that I really noticed that was really apparent to me was that there were two distinct sides. There was the neurotypical view of autism, where it is a disorder and it needs a cure. And then the autistic side is that we are neurologically different. We don't need to be cured. And I struggled with that for a while. Thinking back on all of the difficulties I had in life, if there was a cure, would it have made my life easier? But then thinking more on it, no. What would have made my life a lot easier is being diagnosed younger. I was born in 71, so of course an autism diagnosis during that time was non-existent. And I think it was until 91 where they started actually diagnosing people with autism. And in that, the non-autistic community would only diagnose someone with autism when it was considered by them to be severe, meaning that it was physically affecting that person. Like you could physically see that they're autistic, where they're constant stimming and just not wanting kind of human contact, living off in their heads and things like that. And luckily now we've progressed to the point where autism is being recognized in a lot of different ways. And unfortunately, the neurotypical community, the non-autistics, count us, from light to severe. And that's not the case. Autism is diagnosed on a spectrum. That's why it's called autistic spectrum. It's like a color wheel, and each color represents a different area of development. And in some areas, our autism affects us more than in others. And so, because of that, every autistic is different. In every area, they're slightly different than others. They might be higher on the rating or lower in certain areas. And so it makes us unique. Every autistic is unique. No autistic is the same. And that is part of the problem when you get a late diagnosis, is that you start to go through these things, as videos, information, and say, well, that's not me. Well, that's not me. Did I get the wrong diagnosis? Am I wrong? Am I not autistic? And it leaves that little sliver of doubt in there. And there's a phrase that's used, and it's called imposter syndrome. So this refers to a lot of people who don't have an official diagnosis. They've done online tests and things like that, and they've come out with, that you're high on the spectrum. But because they don't have that official diagnosis, again, it leaves that sliver of doubt. And so they aren't sure whether or not they're really autistic. And so it leaves them feeling like maybe they're faking it, right? They're really not autistic. And as well, when you first get a diagnosis, you start going through all the information and saying, well, that doesn't fit with me, and that doesn't fit with me, that fits with me, but that doesn't fit with me. And then you start thinking, well, maybe I got a wrong diagnosis. Not uncommon. But the thing is that we need to realize that every autistic is different, right? My stims are different than everybody else's. I may have something in common with others. For example, I count on my fingers. I press on the outside of my fingernails. I get like an itch when I'm anxious, and I start to count. And when I can't count on my hands, if I'm busy at work or something like that, I would count on my legs. And I always have to count the even numbers on my left side because I'm left-handed, and the odd numbers on the right side. And there's no other way I can do it. I also get a kind of a twitch in my shoulder. Sometimes I'll get these little twitches as well. And just various little things. I cross my toes. I don't know. I haven't even really identified all of my stims yet. I find this very relaxing for me. I love doing it, although it bothers me because I do it that it curls a little bit right here, so it's not flat, and that bothers me, but oh well. I also have what I kind of term it as is a, what's the word? Like everything has to be, my brain stopped. Everything has to be lined up, right? They're like pictures. If I'm in a doctor's office or something and there's a picture sideways, I have to get up and I have to make it straight. If somebody has a collar that's not folded properly, I have this very strong urge to fix their collar, and often I do. Tie straight, things like that. Everything has to be symmetrical. That was the word. And so that really bothers me, I don't have food aversions, I guess. Of course, there are tastes, like everybody. I don't like squash. I don't like zucchini, things like that. Normal people stuff, right? And also something that once I got my diagnosis, and even before when I started, really getting into this, I realized that hyperfocus is something that I've had my entire life, and I count it as a really good thing, although it does have some downsides. Hyperfocus is when you get either interested in something or working on something, and you are so focused on it, you have no concept of what's going on around you. Somebody could even come up and start talking to you and you won't hear it. Right? It drives my wife crazy, but she's kind of learned to that's just how I am. And I also try to be conscious of it because it can be a problem. I am a stay-at-home dad, and so I look after my daughter. So, right now, one of my special interests has been for a long time, which is music, but I'm also learning to play the guitar. And so I get very much into practicing, playing something, and I have to learn to stop every once in a while and look around, like, is everything okay? There's no noise, or just my daughter's talking to me and I don't even realize it. So it does have a downside. However, when it comes to employment, it's always been something that has worked very, very well for me, because I focus entirely on what I'm doing and I get a lot done in a very short amount of time. Another thing that most autistics tend to have as well are very good organizational skills. And again, this has helped me a lot. I was a production manager for the second largest industrial window manufacturer in Canada. And I walked into the job without any previous experience. And just by getting in there and organizing things, I reduced their excess inventory from 6.4 million to 1.2 million in a matter of 4 months, and ended up organizing a system that made a really difficult job extremely easy to do. And so it really, really helped. My boss was very impressed. But the problems that I had were board meetings. As the production manager, I had to organize charts and reports and then go into a meeting. Meetings make me very uncomfortable. And I tend to just kind of withdraw internally. And I keep my ears open, and but I find that I don't know how to explain it, but I isolate myself from the people, right? So it eventually, at the beginning, it's like there's all these people, and then after a while, I blank the people out in my mind, and there's just the information. Now, again, this is something with a late diagnosis that a lot of us have had to create different tools in order to get by. Mainly social situations, things like eye contact. When I was really young, my grandparents took care of me a lot, and my grandpa always said to me, you make eye contact with people when you talk to them because that's how you know they can be trusted. Don't trust anyone who doesn't make eye contact. So that was something that was really ingrained into me when I was younger because I didn't make eye contact. I really didn't like it. Even today, I see it as something aggressive. And while I can make eye contact for limited periods of time, I eventually start to get a headache because I feel it's very intimate and very aggressive, and I don't like it. And so I'll look at a person, and then I'm also hyper vigilant, so I'm always looking around at other things, and I'll look back at the person, and then I'll look around, and this is something that I've developed over time to help me with the eye contact. As well, social situations are never easy. It's such a bombardment on the senses. Now, if you're recently diagnosed, or you haven't yet been diagnosed, or you aren't autistic and you're watching this, there's something that you really need to know. And that is, most of us do not have separate volumes in our hearing from things that are far away and things that are close. They tend to all be the same volume. And for me, in like a restaurant setting, I can't hear anything. Right? There's other people talking, there's usually a television going, and the person sitting right across me that's talking to me, I can't hear it. It's too much for me. So I always, if we're going out to eat, I always look for somewhere that's fairly quiet, not a lot of people, which doesn't really make me a fun guy to, go out to a club or something with. My wife likes to go out to clubs every once in a while. Of course, not recently because of COVID. But I always choose a table very far back as possible to stay away from all the people. But the noise is just almost intolerable for me. And this leads to something else. There is the social lubricant that we call alcohol. And I haven't heard a lot of other people express this, but I know it's true for me. And I imagine it's true for a lot, even though they don't talk about it. And so when I'm in situations like that, alcohol just helps to numb the senses. I drink to a point where I start to feel it. I'm getting a little woozy, and then I'll either slow down or I'll stop. Because I know I don't like the feeling of being drunk. I don't like the feeling of not being in control of myself. And so that kind of lets me know, okay, I'm in kind of the sweet spot and I can enjoy it a little more. I can, you know, kind of laugh and interact. And again, that leads to another point, masking. So masking is basically the tool that we use to help us get by in a non-autistic world. And it is basically creating a persona that helps us to blend in. Now, everyone is different in this, but it's an autistic trait. We do this, we all do this. As adults, as children, not so much because we don't have that necessity yet. But as we're growing up, we start to take bits and pieces from people we admire. You know, we're very observant because we're trying to figure out how everyone's doing everything. It comes so easy, why not to me? So we start to pick up little bits and pieces and we put together this persona that we use when we're out in public, right? Which includes smiling, eye contact, laughing, right? All these things that don't necessarily come natural to us. And of course, it's not a bulletproof idea. For myself and others that I've talked to, our sense of humor is much different than most neurotypicals. We just find things funny in a different way. And so that's something that can be very off-putting. You know, when you're in a social situation, everyone's talking and joking, and you want to join in, and you start talking and joking. There are times where, I mean, for me at least, where it's just all I've made a joke or said something that I thought was funny, and everyone just kind of, okay, on to something else. And then, you know, later on, someone will say, you know, that wasn't cool. I'm like, what? And then they have to explain it to me, and I still don't understand. I'm like, well, I don't get it. Of course, I wouldn't mean it in a mean way or anything like that. I was joking, right? So it's this level where, you know, I don't know. I found that a lot of their humor is dumbed down. It's very simplistic humor, whereas our humor tends to be a little more intellectual, I guess, in a way. As well, at least in my case, I also have a kind of a juvenile sense of humor. For example, a person getting kicked in the nuts, I find that hilarious. And I will always find that hilarious. I know I will. You know, I don't know. I can't think of other things right now, but so there's that as well. And so it's really hard. It is hard. Being autistic is not easy. And when you get a recent diagnosis, over time, you're going to find that being autistic means that it affects every part of your life. There is not one part of your life that is not affected by being autistic. And it's very difficult to comprehend because, you know, you think, well, there must be some areas where, you know, I can get in. And you'll find that they're very, very, very few. For example, one of my special interests is music. You get me started talking on music, and I will talk for music for hours on end. I will talk about, you know, specific genres that, The other person may have said, oh, I really like Pearl Jam. Okay, so we're talking about grunge. So we start talking, and then I'll throw out, all these little bits and pieces of rare information, things that generally people don't know, and I'll just keep going. And people are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go over here. And so it's really hard. And as well, people talking about stuff that really doesn't make sense to us. It's just like small talk. My God, small talk. I used to work in a call center. Yeah. And I hated taking calls. So I finally got on to the chats and emails team. I loved it. I told my boss, if you never move me from this position, I will be happy. I want to stay here forever, because I could put on my music, which blocked out all of the noise of over 100 people talking on phones, and just focus on emails, which was fantastic. I loved it. But every once in a while, I'd have to go and ask for some information from one of our technical advisors. So I just walk up and I go, Dan was the guy's name. I go, hey, Dan, blah, 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 right? And he'd go, hi, Jason. Oh, sorry. Hi, Dan. How are you? And I'm like, fuck, I just have a question. I need information so I can get back. Yeah, that's it, right? Like, what does hi, how are you have to do with anything? We both know that it's just preamble to get to the important parts. So let's skip it, right? It just... The whole small talk thing is something that bothers almost all of us. So it just goes out into so many areas. So when you first get your diagnosis, I recommend, and this is what I did, and it's been working for me, is first give in to your instincts. Because we have been masking. Masking is basically a repression of our autistic self. Okay? Because of that repression, we suffer from depression, we suffer from burnouts, meltdowns. A lot of people commit suicide, right? And it's because we're repressing, right? And we think, up until we get our diagnosis or figure out that we're autistic, that there's something wrong with us, that we have this meltdown and we're like, my God, I'm going crazy, right? And it just leads into a spiral. So what you need to do is to just give in to your instincts. If you have always had this instinct to count things or to to whatever, any kind of instinct that you feel, like counting on your fingers or rocking back and forth, side to side, humming, whatever it is, let yourself do it. Okay, of course, we can't really do it when we're out in public, so we do this at home. And what it is basically coming in, taking off your mask, and just letting yourself relax, because this is our way of relaxing. It's relaxing for us. These are like, when we're kids and we have our favorite teddy bear or favorite blanket, that's what this is. This is a sense of security for us. It's something that calms us, right? So you have to learn to give in to your instincts and allow yourself to stim, allow yourself to do the things that you've been repressing. Next, try and bit by bit, don't overwhelm yourself, because it's going to be counterproductive. Bit by bit, figure out the problems that are specific for you, right? I have a light sensitivity. I didn't know it was a light sensitivity caused by autism, I always thought it was because I have blue eyes, right? They say that blue eyes are a lack of pigment, so that we can't filter out the sun, right? So I would always go out and wear sunglasses. I had to, because after a while my eyes would get all puffy and they would hurt, they're super dry, and I would start to get headaches. So realizing that that is part of my autism, I always make sure to have my sunglasses when I leave. I also have auditory sensitivities, right? So again, I try and make sure that if I'm out in public, I carry my headphones, I put in music, just to help me to keep my levels of stress as low as possible. When you get home, do what you want to do, and routines. You may notice that you have always had a very specific routine, and that if that routine is altered in some way, it can be very upsetting for you, right? My routine is very simple in that, I wake up in the morning, I change my daughter, I make her a bottle, I go out for a cigarette, and I come in and make my coffee, and I check my social media, everything. That's like first thing getting up. After that, it's more flexible, right? Because I'm at home, I'm in a comfortable place. It's basically looking after my daughter, making her something to eat, myself. Another thing, we forget to eat. May forget to do things like shave, which I haven't done in a while. If you're living alone, then sometimes bathing, which hyper focus works against us on that, because I would spend days, when I was a web designer, I would spend days in front of the computer. I would sleep a few hours, wake up, work, right? I would forget to eat. I would forget to bathe, I would forget to shower, until I was just like, oh, what is that smell? Realizing it was me. And so I had to incorporate into my routine, eating hours, specific eating hours, specific time to have a shower. Like, I always shower right before bed. I find that's the most comfortable for me. I'm nice and warm, I'm relaxed, and I can go to bed. If I don't shower, then I feel dirty, I'm uncomfortable, and I can't sleep. So, but yeah, these are all kinds of things that I'm going to talk about more in depth in later videos. I'm just kind of giving an overview so far, and I hope it's helpful. You can also find my podcast, Peeling Back the Mask, on anchor.fm, Peeling Back the Mask. You can find me on Instagram in Peeling Back the Mask with underscores between the words. I have a Facebook page as well, Peeling Back the Mask, and now my YouTube page. So I hope you found this information useful. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions for other videos. I said I've only been diagnosed for, like 5 months. So, but I've, been able to assimilate a lot of information and spend a lot of time just getting to know myself again. And it's been very, very helpful. So I want to be able to get that information out for others who may find it helpful. I know there are a lot of people on YouTube that talk about autism. I'm just one of the many, but I hope that you like my videos, and if you do, give it a thumbs up, give it a subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos. So thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.